Hello, and welcome to Cinema Analytics. Today we will collectively look at the films of a group of actors with just about 40 years of starring in lead roles. Specifically, we will discuss how movie fans rate those films and how those ratings change over the course of each actor's career. We will discuss films rated by fans that starred Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, Bill Murray, Meryl Streep, Eddie Murphy, Tom Hanks, and Michelle Pfeiffer. Some of these actors have a little over 40 years as a major star, and some just a little less than 40 years. These actors meet specific requirements. They have 1. A 38 to 40 something film career, 2. Primarily starred in lead roles, and 3. Have had fairly steady lead roles up into this decade. This list and ratings were provided by the website TheMovieDB. The film ratings were voted by movie fans on the website. These circles list the roles the actor has played more than once. Actors listed as himself are automatically filtered out of the dataset. Each circle lists the name of the character portrayed by the actor. It includes the number of films the actor played the character, and also includes the average rating for those films in which the actor portrayed the character. This screen gives the ratings timeline. On the bottom axis, we have the years of the actor's career. The start and end dates are set by the release date filter. The left axis gives the rating score. So a particular year's average rating for films the actor appeared in will measure up to the score on the left axis. The blue line plots the average rating for films the actor starred in. Minimum and maximum reference lines indicate the lowest and highest rating. The dotted gray line plots the trend or trajectory of the film starring the actor over time. And the average rating line gives the average rating of the films in this time period. This view is a rating scatter chart. Each dot is a film the actor appeared in. This view gives you a visual imprint of how individual films are scoring within a time frame of a few years. For instance, you can clearly see that there are a group of films that the actor appeared in between 2006 and 2014. Let's get started with the career of Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford's movies are all listed. We have the rating as well as the number of votes for a particular title. And back up here to our circles, we can see that Harrison Ford portrayed Han Solo 4 times in 4 films, and those 4 films have an average rating of 8.0. The Indiana Jones films, 4 of them, those movies have an average rating of 7.1. And the Jack Ryan films, an average rating of 6.5. We can go down to our listing here and see that the 2 movies were Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games. So now we'll go and look at the timeline of those ratings, and you can see that with Harrison Ford, his first 2 films received the highest rating. Of course, both Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back were among those 2 films. After that, those first few years, you can see a steady decline in those ratings, but it begins to tick up a little higher in 1988 through 1993. It bottoms out in 2003, starts to pick up from there, and concludes with a high rating in 2015 of 7.4. We can go to the rating scatter chart, and we can individually pick out any of the films for a particular year that are on this chart. And this is for 2002's K-19, The Widowmaker, which has an average rating of 6.3. And once again, these are ratings that were voted by users on the website, the Movie DB. And once again, we can see that the two highest scoring ratings were for The Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars. And the lowest rating was for Hollywood Homicide. So that's looking at Harrison Ford. Let's go on to our next actor. We're now looking at the film career of Tom Cruise. And on this screen, we are looking at the two roles that Tom has portrayed more than once. And those characters are Ethan Hunt and Jack Reacher. For Ethan Hunt, there's 5 films with an average rating of 6.6. This would be all of the Mission Impossible movies. And also for the Jack Reacher films, 2 of them, an average rating of 5.9. Let's go to the ratings timeline. And in the ratings timeline, we see that everything was pretty flat, pretty consistent for the first 8 years at around 6.6 average for the movies during that time frame. Dipped a little bit in 1990, went up over pretty much over 7.0 between 1990 and 2000. And from that point on until about 2014, it was a bit up and down. We can look a little bit more into that if we want to. Let's say if we want to look at that period between, say, 2002 and we'll say 2014. So we can see that between that time frame, as given by this timeline, that it was coming off a higher rating for those films and decreasing as time went on. This is only between 2000 and 2014. And because we've applied a filter to our release date, the movies that are listed down at the bottom are all movies between the time frame that we have our filter applied to. If we want to go in and look at a little closer look at exactly what those films were, we can go to our scatter chart, and each one of these circles here is a different film. Keep in mind that we still have our filter applied, and we're looking at movies between 2001 to 2014. So if we just want to pick out what those movies were during that time frame, for instance, this is Lines for the Lamb, a 2007 film. This is his appearance in Austin Powers and Goldmember. And this is 7.2 for Minority Report and 7.3 for Last Samurai. And during this particular time frame, those two movies were the movies that received the highest rating. We can go ahead and, if we want to, expand it again. We can go back to ratings timeline and set it to the entire window. And if we wanted to go back to the scatter chart again, now we can see all the films in his career starting from 1981 with Cadet Captain David Shawn and ending with last year's The Mummy and everything between. Now we're looking at the career of Bill Murray. And there are 3 roles that Bill Murray has portrayed more than once. You can see that he's listed as Bill Murray in 3 films. If this had been listed as himself instead of Bill Murray, it would not appear in our chart data. But because he is listed as Bill Murray in those films, they're showing up as a character. He also, of course, has played Peter Venkman in the Ghostbuster movies twice. The ratings for those those two films is 6.8 on average. And for Garfield, a lower average here, 5.3. And when he played Bill Murray, it's an average of 6.5 in those films. Going to the timeline for Bill Murray, we can see he started off pretty high in the early 80s, took a bit of a dip in the latter part of the 80s, some peaks here, but then also some drops. The same in the 2000s. Well, only one drop, only one lower average here in 2006, and in the last few years, of course, we can see there's a high of 2012 and a low in 2015, and a little bit of a bounce back in 2016. And of course, we can do one of two things if we want to find out what those movies were. We can either go down into our listing here to see what those ratings were, or we can go to our scatter chart and get a pretty good idea of how those films are distributed as far as their rating, as well as looking at the title and rating of each film. And so, as I said, for 2006, that low rating was for Garfield. And the high rating was for the Grand Budapest Hotel. Again, if we wanted to only look at a particular, I'll go back to our timeline to do this. If we only wanted to look at, let's say, the early part of his career to try to see what the average ratings were for his early films, we can see that it's an average rating of 7.0. And again, it started out very high in 1981, and in the later 80s dropped down to about 6.5 almost. And again, you can see that as we apply our release date filter, it also filters out the movies in this time frame. So between 1981 and 1987, there's only 3 films listed. So I will also like to add one other thing, and that is that this vote count is very, very important for our data set. In order for a movie to appear in a data set, it has to have at least 100 votes. So there may be some films that the actor appeared in that may not appear in our data set, and that would be because it did not receive 100 votes. One such movie for Bill Murray is the film The Razor's Edge, which came out in 1984. Did not receive a sufficient amount of votes to be included in the data set. And now we're looking at the filmography of Meryl Streep. And we can see that with her career, started out around 7.5 in the first few years. Took a bit of a dip starting around 1996 to 1992. We can see that the average rating over this time span is about 6.5. And we can see that there's a bit of decline starting from the beginning of her career to her most recent films. And we can see that we have some below average films between say 2003 and about 2007. If we want to take a closer look at that, we can. Let's move our release date filter up to 2003 and set it to end. Around 2008. So from 2001 to 2009, with that time frame in our window, it's an average of 6.2. If I were to make this a little bit shorter, you can see how that will affect the graph. And this time, because the averages were much lower starting around 2003, it shows an upward trajectory from that time. So clearly you can see that that particular period between 2003 and 2007 was about the lowest average in her career. But overall, not bad. After all, it is Meryl Streep, and there is a bit of a rebound from that period starting from 2007. Again, if we want to take a closer look at the actual individual films and how they scatter about, the first thing you can clearly see is that there's a lot more work that she did in the last 15 years than about the first 20 years of her career. That's something that wouldn't immediately pop out if you were looking only at the timeline. And you can see in the since around 2002, her highest performing film as far as ratings by fan was the animated film Fantastic Mr. Fox. And the lowest rating, going all the way back to 2003, was the film Stuck on You. And once again, a lot of film roles you can see here, going from about 2003 to about 2004. And now we're looking at the career of Eddie Murphy, and we're looking at roles that Eddie Murphy played more than once. And you can see the biggest role was that of Donkey. Now, of course, there's actually only 3 theatrical Shrek films, but we have 5 listed here. And that's because there are a couple of direct-to-video titles that are among the Donkey roles. See, that would be Shrek the Halls and I believe Shrek Forever After. So if we didn't want those roles, those direct-to-video titles affecting the ratings for the Donkey character, we could just take those, filter those out of the data set. Shrek Forever and Shrek the Halls. And you can see the ratings did go up a little bit. And we'll just go ahead and put them back. And we can see that for Axel Foley role, 2 films are listed here, and an average rating of 6.6. For the Dr. Dolittle films, a rating of 5.2. So clearly that's Dr. Dolittle is his least prestigious role as far as how the fans rate those films. Moving on to the ratings timeline, a sort of common theme in this is that actors, the beginning of their careers, those films are rated the highest. And with Eddie, you can see it maxed out very early in his career with about 7.5. And we have a period here starting around 1995 through 2002, where he had a couple of years where the average rating was below 5.0, and a little bit of a rebound between 2004, 2007, and coming back up closer toward his average between 2009 and 2013. And again, you can see where there's a lot of movies here that are below 6.0. A lot of films here that are around the 5.5 to 4.5 range. That's not good at all. Some some good spots. This is for Mulan. Of course, that film's going to be rated high. And this is for Shrek. And this is for Donkey again. So the animated film seems to be the only one where the later career of Eddie Murphy is scoring pretty high. And of course, he got a lot of good notices for Dreamgirls. That's a 6.6. And the past few years has been around 6.0. Um, Donkey again. 1,000 Words. Not even familiar with that film. And so that's Eddie Murphy. So let's move on. And now we're looking at the career of Tom Hanks. And we can see that the role that Tom has portrayed the most is as Woody. Um, Coincidentally, this is not my doing. The fact that it looks like Mickey Mouse, it just came up that way. But yeah, we have 5 films where Tom portrayed Woody, and average rate of 7.3. So the Toy Story movies, of course, scoring very high. He's also listed as Woody in 3 other films, and these other films are Tom as Woody, but not specifically in the Toy Story movies, and those have an average rating of 7.0. And then thirdly, we see that the Robin Langdon character from the Da Vinci Code movies, 3 movies in all, with an average rating of 6.3. Let's go and look at Tom's timeline. And we can see that unlike all of the other actors in this analysis, Tom, the average rating for movies in Tom's career started out on the lower end and steadily picked up. And we can see that it actually peaked around between 1991 and 1992, around that time frame, up until about 2002. If we want to zoom in on that era, those years, we can see that there's an incredible high average of 7.4. That really is incredible. If we go to the scatter chart is going to have the release date applied to it as well, and we can see between that time frame, uh, uh, just about a 10-year time frame. Um, it started with the movie A League of Their Own with 6.9. The peak rated film was Forrest Gump. Then we also have The Green Mile that's also rated very highly. Um, and we can also see that it's about an average of about maybe 1.5 movies per year. Maybe on average, it's actually more like one. So not doing, you know, a high degree of films per year. It looks more like, more quality than quantity. And the result of that, I think, is what's going into these high ratings. So a very good period for Tom Hanks between 1992 and about 2002. And finally, we're looking at the film career of Michelle Pfeiffer. We're starting the first film in this filmography is 1982, and it goes to 2013. As you can see, we have our release date filter all the way to the left, all the way to the right, indicating that we're choosing all of the films in that time frame. And there's an average rating of 6.5 for those years, with a peak in 1983. And I'm pretty sure most of you will know what movie that is. That's 1983. And we also can see that the worst average year was just before that in 1982 with a 5.0 rating. We can go down to our listing here and see that that one movie in 1982 was Grease 2 at 5, and which still remains the lowest rating film, I believe. Yes, the lowest rating film in that time span. And a little bit of up and down since 1983, but everything is sort of concentrated around 6.5. If we go to the scatter chart, on the scatter chart, you can see that everything's kind of pretty much concentrated between about 6.0 and about 7.0, maybe 7.2 2.25 maybe. This is very, very consistent. So this shows an actress who was really able to pick solid films to work in. You know, although there's not anything exceeding 7.5 after Scarface in 1983, there's really not anything that's below 5.5 either, and certainly nothing approaching the rating of Grease 2. But like I said, everything is very consistent in this time frame. That's pretty solid in my book. So that's Michelle Pfeiffer career. So that's it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. As always, I will be providing links to this report on Tableau Public. And until next time, thank you for watching.